Hello, hello. Welcome back to Bishop Chapter. We're exactly where we left off after the last episode, which I finished recording about 10 seconds ago. So, straight back into it. Right, we have just looked at. So, we first looked at Anubis in the first part. We also looked at a bunch of the game's main systems, and we saw that that video was over an hour long just for that first puzzle, which is, the puzzle's not complex by any means, but it does give you a good indicator of just why I spent so much time in that one room at the beginning of this series, beginning of development, because this is the room where I also established a lot of the game's main stuff. This was my own hub, I guess, for laying down the game's mechanics, like interaction, animations, getting the torch set up, getting the obviously the puzzle, getting the console set up out here, getting the chess system set up, getting the lights set up. It was it took a lot of time for me to program that in, and likewise it took a lot of time for me to break it down in the blueprints and show you everything that was going on. And then obviously in the previous video we covered 3 puzzles in one and had 20 minutes to spare. So yeah, it does go to show how much work was done initially in there, and if not to you guys, but to me especially, it's shown me just why that took so long. Like all this time I've looked back on it thinking, wow, I really spent too much time in that room. But yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah, I'm going off on a tangent. Just some musings in the 10-15 seconds I've had to think about the previous video. So, BENBEN, the Doomsday Death Clock, whatever this looks like. It's pretty crazy looking, but I also think it is very cool. A BENBEN is like a pyramid topper, kind of like a pyramid shaped stone. You can search it up online. I think I've talked about it before as well, but that's the centerpiece of this puzzle, and yeah, everything kind of revolves around it literally. So we have rings. The outer ring, which are the stationary pedestals that hold the collectible statuettes, which you need to place in the slots. Then we have the rotating outer ring. It's got the most platforms on it, I believe 8. Yeah, 8. And yeah, it's kind of the easiest to get onto. The middle platform, 3 little bridges, and then we've got the center platform, which is the slots for the little statues, and then a little platform by each face of the pyramid. The idea of this was just to create a little cool fast-paced platforming section, just as a change of pace from scouring the map looking for pipes, or reading documents and clicking books, or just being trapped in a cell pressing buttons on the wall. I did want this puzzle to be different, and it most certainly is, if you ask me. It's also the first puzzle you're likely to come across that blasts music. That actually happens in 3 of the game's puzzles now. That wasn't initially going to be the case, but a friend of mine, Martin, sent me a lot of music that he was working on to put in the game. And it's not a musical game, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity, and I found little places for them. And I think it does enhance the game. Imagine doing this puzzle when all you can hear is like the ambient crickets and wind and stuff like that. It's not as exciting. And likewise with the maze. Imagine just running around that maze and all you can hear are your own footsteps. Anyway, yeah, they were the missing link that I needed. So these are all different actors. We'll have a look at the inner ring first. So one of the things that revolutionized this was discovering the rotating movement that I could add. I've used it before in a space game that I've made. We had a sort of central space station that you could go back to and refuel, and that was set on a constant rotation. And I remember doing it. I remember setting that up, but I couldn't remember how to do it for this game. I couldn't find it anywhere, and then obviously I searched it up and I found out. But my other go-to method at first was to create cinematics. So maybe you'll remember that initially. Why is this being so choppy? That initially this wasn't going to be a puzzle with constant rotation. I did want to have a set of levers on the wall here, and the player kind of pulls a lever, and then the ring like rotates by one platform in a certain direction, like the outer ring, for example. And you pull the second lever, and then the inner ring maybe rotates the other way, and then you pull the third lever, and then maybe the middle and the outer rotate the opposite way, or something like that. And there was going to be one path that you had to get around, stand in the middle, and then you had to like make your way over to this building. But that was boring. That was literally so boring. And when I rediscovered the rotation that I could put on these, it made it a lot more fun, because I could speed that up and slow it down as and when I wanted to. What the hell is going on my PC? Anyway, so yeah, let's look at the blueprint for this bad boy. There's an event tick. It looks at the number of BENBEN statues placed. If there are 2 placed, then it sets the rotating movement to 25 or plus 25 on the Z axis, which is basically going around in the way that it does. Rotating X and Y, you wouldn't physically be able to stay on the platforms if that was going on. Mainly because it would be doing that. Yeah, not ideal. But this basically controls the middle one. So I think each of the rings has a similar setup for their blueprints. Yes, exactly the same. We'll just blast through them quickly. So once 2 have been placed, it just speeds it up to 25 from can't remember what the default is. Should say on here. 20 for the middle one, and then it's minus 15 for this one, and the minus just means it rotates the other way. Doesn't mean it's so slow that it's, well, so it does mean that it's so slow that it's minus slow, but yeah. Then the outer one is 5, and it feels fast enough on 5 because it's the outermost and it has the most platforms. If you go in and play it, like I've tried this at different speeds. I did initially want to set it to be really, really fast, but it was just unplayable. I talked about that in the BENBEN commentary video itself, so I won't talk about it again. But to summarize, yeah, I didn't want that for my game. So yeah, collecting 2 statues sets it to 25 from 20. And then 4 statues sets it to 30, 6 to 40, and 8 back to 20. So that's the initial speed. So once all 8 had been placed, the puzzle just resets. And at first, when you come across the puzzle, it feels like it's already going pretty fast. But once you complete the puzzle and seen just how fast it does go, the initial speed is going to feel so slow. It's quite interesting, really, by comparison to how fast the rest of the puzzle went. You know, it went double speed. And then we've got a similar thing here with the other rings. So minus 15 goes to minus 20, minus 25, minus 35. And then 10, 15, 25, and 5 for the outer ring. So, I mean, you've seen the breakdown. The fastest speed that the outer ring goes is 25, and trying to jump from this platform onto these pedestals at max speed is quite tricky. You fall off a lot. And that was especially hard when I was trying to record as well, because I've talked about this to death as well. OBS and Unreal Engine 4 do not agree on my PC at all. When OBS is running, the game is so choppy for me. Unfortunately, it's impacted my videos and the trailer that I made recently. It runs smoothly otherwise. If I'm just playing the game, it runs just fine. And yeah, thanks. And jumping from here to there is actually, you know, it's quite doable. Let's look at the statues. So they all have the same code. When you interact, it checks if any of the other statues are held, and if they're not, then it sets this one to be held and destroys the actor. So this ensures that the player can only carry one statue at a time, because standing on this, dipping off, grabbing this, getting back on, jumping on, grabbing it, getting back on, doing that, farming them all is just no fun, because then you can just stand on here, spam, 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 and then yeah, so on. So it ensures that the maximum amount of navigation of this puzzle is imperative. Then we get to the slots. So each of these statues is paired with a slot. So you can't put this one statue in any old slot. It has to go in the one that it's paired with. And again, that is to ensure that the player spends the maximum amount of time possible navigating this thing. If you could put these into any slot, then it'd be too easy, in my opinion. The slot looks like this. So this one, slot 7 is paired with statue 7. So if we look at it, these statues are not in order either. So this is statue 6, statue 1, statue 8, statue 2. It's just to ensure that you can't just, you know, grab one, come back, one goes in there, grab 2, come back, 2 goes in there. Yeah. You just can't, it's hard to learn it. And if you do get it down, I mean, all sides of the pyramid look so similar. If you do learn the system of which statue goes where, you're at the very least going to have to put a lot of effort in to learn that, to the point where if you do end up learning that system, then good on you. You deserve to pass this puzzle flawlessly. Yeah, event interact. Is the statue held? If it is, we set the visibility. So this is in the slot, sorry. So if you interact with the slot, if you're holding the right statue, then it's visible. If we look at this guy in the viewport, again, it's really, really tiny. Oh, I see. It's not this guy. It's the slot, isn't it? I was on there. What am I doing? So that's the slot. And inside the slot is an invisible statue, which is right here. And so it sets the statue to visible. If you are holding the correct one, then it says that it's placed, and then it says you're no longer holding it, and then it sets the number of BENBEN statues placed +1 and sets that. So that's the entire sort of string of placing a statue. And then this here is what determines the speed of the sections. So if you remember the this green stuff here, so that's what that's interacting with. It adds 1, and then once you collect the second one, it adds another 1, bringing the total to 2, and then the code picks up that this equals 2, and so we're going to set it to be a bit faster. And that's how that puzzle works. That is BENBEN. That was easy. I thought I was going to forget everything for this, for all these puzzles, really. So we will move on to the most recently added major puzzle, unless there's some other random stuff in here I can talk about. Just got PC. I've covered the documents. Oh, these shadows are so annoying. I don't know how to get rid of them. It's the trees from outside. For some reason, the shadow is coming through. Where are they coming from? It's this tree. I'm getting this everywhere. It's in this building as well. When you walk in, you can see the shadows of the pipe. Here. That's disgusting. The pipe, whatever the hell that is. The lights on the roof. That's the pipe again. The same pipe. Why are the shadows coming through? It's so weird. It wasn't always doing this. Just one day I just built the lights, and yeah, it started doing that. I did Google how to fix it, but it said to set the meshes as two-sided, so it casts shadow on the inside instead of passing through it. But it didn't fix anything. Very frustrating. And it's the same in here, I think. Yeah, the table comes through the floor and there. I mean, I'm not in a final game. That would be an issue, but in the test build, where the focus is on the mechanics of the puzzles, it's really not an issue. Anyway, we are in ATEN. It's a little cinematic camera I used to make the trailer, so we'll ignore this for now. Yeah, so, oh god, where do I even begin with this one? Let's have a look at these, shall we? Projector case. Right. Okay, we'll do this in conjunction with where they're placed. So we have this thing here, BP projector. This looks like this, and it has all these invisible pieces. So for example, if I just turn on visibility, got the front cover, you know, the main lens, just every component of the projector is there, but invisible. And then the idea is that when you go over and you pick up a piece of it, and you come over and you interact, it sets that piece to be visible on this model. So it looks like you carried it over, but you sort of didn't. And then when the final one is placed, it sets the light to be visible. So we'll look at the code for that. Actually, we'll do the stuff on the table first, just so you understand that. So, when you interact with one of the pieces, this piece is the projector case, so it's the first one you're meant to pick up. it sets it that you're holding the projector case. And then it sets the visibility off for the one on the table to make it look like you picked it up. And then, because I want to encourage the player to carry everything over one at a time, it sets all the rest to not held. So if you're holding the front cover already, and then you pick up the case, you are no longer holding the front cover and it reappears on the table. And then that's determined down here. So for example, if I was holding this case and then I went and picked up the circuit board, then the event tick would pick up that I'm not holding this anymore, and so it would reset the visibility to the one on the table. Hopefully that makes sense. I think I explained it as best I could. And then we've got this one here. So interacting with that, if you're holding the case, that is true, then the case component on the projector is set to visible. The case is set as placed, and then it destroys the case actor from the table. And what this does is it ensures that if you picked up another piece next after placing this, the case isn't just going to show up on the table again randomly, because that's what the other code is telling it to do. And so this is now clashing with the other code and telling it, do not show that case, destroy that case. I don't want to see that case ever again in my life. And then it's the same string then, but it modifies a little bit because you have to place them in a certain order. If you remember, there was a notebook in the Thoth room, and on the back of the notebook was a diagram showing the order by which these pieces had to be placed. So you can't just come up with a circuit board and place it randomly hovering there. You know, you need to put the case on, circuit board in, the lens needs to go in next, because if you put the lens in first, the circuit board can't fit. Then the front cover goes on to lock all that in, and finally the front lens comes on so that it can light up. And it has to go all in that order, and this is what determines that plays out in the code. We're about to get a annoying save on the screen again. There we go. Thank you, Unreal. So if you are holding the circuit and this case has been placed, then we'll run the string that places the circuit board and does the exact same as the above, but for the circuit board. And then it's the same story then as we go down. If you're holding the lens plug, the circuit board needs to have been placed for the rest of the code to run, and so on. The lens plug needs to be placed for the front cover to be placed, and then the front cover needs to be placed for the lens main to be placed. That's a lot of words. And then the event tick is checking for lens main. Is that placed? If that is true, then the light will come on, and the sphere is just a glowing ball. It's the big glowing orb to make it look like the light is on, because the spotlight is actually invisible. You can only see the surfaces it hits, so you can only see the light that it casts rather than the beam or the source itself, and so this is a fake source to make it look like the light is on. Yeah, that's the projector. And then the light hits this bad boy down here, the ball podium. I have no better way of explaining what that is. So it just casts the projector when the event begins play, and yeah, checks for the lens main to be placed. If it is, then a sphere comes on here as well. So it's the same as with the noon tapestry light. There's another sphere invisible over the top of it with a glowing texture on it, but it's ever so slightly bigger than the ball, so that the glowing sphere sits on top of the ball. That one's very easy. Then we've got these things, which were an absolute honking nightmare to program. Yeah, let's go into the bulb. Okay, so what I wanted from this puzzle was a journey of a single light source. So the light comes from the projector, it hits this ball which glows, this ball sends the light out, one over here and one over there. So it splits the ball like a refractor, like a prism. Splits the ball, no, it splits the light like a prism, and it sends one beam out directly west and one beam out directly east. And then these projectors turn on as a result, because they are picking up the light, and so they divert it again, and they send the beam in whatever direction they are facing. So the idea of the puzzle is to turn these to redirect the beam and create or complete the circuit so that this other ball podium is receiving two sources of light, and so you send the light out from the projector. I can't even speak. You send the light out from the projector, it splits in two, and then you reunite those two back in this guy. And then this guy redirects the light at the ATEN board, which is kind of like, it's an indicator then that the ATEN system is on, because that's how electronics works, right? You shine a light at something and it comes on. Yeah, so that was the entire plan. So I had to program that. I didn't want these to be turnable in this room, because I want there to be an extra step of deduction for the player to work out that these actually have real world partners on the outside of the building. So the floor is a map of the entire compound. This ball podium is placed pretty much almost on the ATEN building where we're standing, and we're on the side of it. So if you look at the it's quite dark, but if you look at the map, you've got this loading bay, the pavement going up, and then there is the ball podium. So let's look back out here. We've got the loading bay, pavement going up, and the ball podium is around there, which is kind of around here. So we're sort of in the same spot. And then this guy then has a counterpart on the outside, which would be over here. And it's right here. It's this console. And that console controls which direction this is facing. It's very elaborate, and it wouldn't work in real life as any kind of control system. But it's a puzzle game, and so we get away with it. Anyway, let us dive into how this works. So it's all casting when the event begins play again. I pretty much just copy the casting stuff everywhere. I always cast to everything. Event tick. So the event tick is checking if that lens is placed on the projector. If it is, we show light A. And light A is defined down here. So it just sets the visibility of the sphere and the visibility of the spotlight. And that's how the light comes out the projectors. But that only comes on if the lens is placed. But that only works for this projector and that projector. These other ones require input from light that comes from these things. So these two projectors up there are the main sources of light. Once they are shined down here, that's when the real fun begins. This one basically has exactly the same code, but I do a bit of extra casting at the beginning. So I cast to the bulb of the previous projector. So bulb A. So let me just take you on a rundown of what's A. So that's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. So we're in the blueprint now for bulb B, and we set a reference for bulb A in this, as well as the projector. So on the event tick, we are checking, is bulb A facing south, and is the main lens placed in the projector? If these are both true, then we'll show the light for this one. And to check if this is facing south, we go back into A, because that's where all of this comes in. Right, okay. I've got to show you the buttons in that case. So these consoles, I don't think there's anything in the box itself. Yeah, nothing. Jeez. The buttons, right. Let's go button A1. Oh boy. So, in the button, event begin play, it's just all the casting. We cast to the bulb that this button controls. We cast to the player, and we cast to all the other buttons on this one. So we're casting to this, that, and this. So when someone interacts with this button, when the player interacts with this button even, is it pressed? It's this old classic toggle system again. If it is pressed, we set it to not pressed. And if it's not pressed, we set it to pressed. And when it's pressed, we turn bulb A to face south. So this is a custom event that is defined in the bulb A blueprint, which we will go to. So it's turn south, isn't it? Yeah. So it's this one, turn south. And when this is run, it sets all the other directions to false, and it sets this direction to true. And then when this direction is set as true, the event tick picks it up. So what was it? We're facing south, so this is true. So now this is false. So if it's facing north before, north is now made false, and so the event tick runs down the false route rather than rotating it that way. And now it's facing south, so that's true. So we'll set the rotation of that bulb, that projector, this guy. We'll set the Z rotation to 90 degrees, and that essentially points it south. And yeah, that's it for that. There you go. And then that defines this then. So if bulb A is facing south, so we know the lens main is placed because it's, the light is on. So this is always going to be true, but it also covers the game's back in case the projector is rotated before the main projector is assembled, because we don't want someone to rotate a projector that's off and still trigger the light to come from the next projector. So first and foremost, the light has to be on, and then when it's facing south and the light is on, that's when we'll show light B, which is the same code down here. The sphere and the spotlight are set to visible, and I'll show you that in the viewport. Cool, so we got the sphere and the spotlight. Right, so that turns it south, and then it also unpresses all the other buttons on this one console. Oh, I've already gone from it, but you remember the buttons. And then button A2 has exactly the same code, except it changes the direction it turns. It changes which ones are off. And oh, we got the material as well. I'll talk about that now. So on the event tick, we are checking if the button is pressed. So this is a variable that, while it's quite vague, it is exclusive to button A1. So if button A1 is pressed, then we set the texture of it to be the emission version. I'll have to, oh my god, I get to show you a material. When does that happen? I guess the materials are quite important for this one. Compiling shaders, go away. Where are we? ATEN. Right. Delete that down here. No. Boxes, buttons, there we go. Let's drag this up. So as you can see, there's a texture for each button that's standard, and then a version of it that's emission. So you can see up here, oh, that's the wrong one. There you go. It's just like a little hieroglyph. It's just a texture, nice and simple, and then the emission version of it is the texture, but it's got the alternative emission texture over the top, and that's set at a multiply of 30, so it's not too bright. You can see, oh, I can't really, there you go, you can see the shape underneath versus the emission. So all that does then is that when it's pressed, the button glows, and when it's unpressed, the button goes back to its normal texture. And these are defined for every single button. If you think about it, that's a lot of buttons. So that's just console A to control projector 1 or projector A. Then there's 4 more different actors for the buttons for B, and so on for C, all the way down to H. So in total we have 32 buttons. Each one I had to go in and manually set the textures, and then in each A through H blueprint for the projectors, I had to redefine the buttons. I had to reset which buttons were off. I had to reset which bulbs in which directions. So obviously this just, just button A1 turns it south, button A2 would turn it north, for example. And then I had to reset which materials. So this is very time consuming. I had to basically build this code 32 times. I could copy most of it. Like I could copy all the, I could copy this. I had to redefine references for the previous one, so it wasn't always bulb A. If I was editing bulb C, then I'd have to cast a bulb C. But essentially, yeah, that was very time consuming. And same again for this. A through H, how many is that? 8. So I had to build this 8 times as well. Lots of ticking. I had to reset these. This was all fine. That could be copied. I had to reset that. I had to cast to something else there. I had to reset these. But yeah, essentially, all of this is set up in a way that the system works. I've tested it. It does work, and I've tested failures, like turning it the wrong way, or having one, taking this one and turning it the other way when all the others were facing the correct way. And yeah, it interrupts the circuit. It totally does. I think this one In the build of the game that's online at the moment, this one is weird because no matter what direction it faces, it always sends lights to this one. And I don't know why, because they're all using the same code, and all the others work correctly. It's just one of those things, just like an actual bug. Very strange. And then we've got, nope. Then we've got, oh, where is the code for the door? Could it be in this one? Yes. Yes, it is. Right. Great. So, to round off the puzzle, then begin play. There's all the casting. Cast the projector, and then we cast to the two projectors, the bulbs, that are neighboring it. So we cast to this one, and we cast to this one. Then on the event tick, we are checking, of course, if the light is even on. And then we are checking, is bulb D facing east? Is bulb E facing west? And if all three of these things are true, then we will show podium 2 light, which is the beam that comes out of this and hits ATEN, the tower. And if any of these are not true, then the light will not be there. And so it runs show podium lights, so it's the same deal again. It's the sphere and the spotlight. They're set visible or invisible, but if they are set visible, then they also run this string of code to complete ATEN. So we open the vault doors, delay by 2 seconds, and then we set ATEN to complete. So I'll just go back into cinematics again. ATEN vault doors. There we go. That's it. It's just this. A little Pac-Man that opens and reveals the statue. Now, a weird thing with this, after I'd animated these, I realized that there was a gap. There's a slight gap in between the doors. See if you can see it from the other side. Yeah, you see that light strip? You can actually look through there and interact with the statue while the doors are closed. So I had to shot in the dark here. ATEN puzzle floor. Where is the statue? Damn it. I have to search it. ATEN. God, there's so many things called ATEN. Oh my god. Trophy? There we go. There it is. Right. So, yeah, I had to set it. Whereas all the other trophies in the game, you just interact with them and then it tells the game you have them and then it destroys the actor. This one's different because you could pick it up through the doors without the doors being open. So I had to set it so ATEN needed to be complete before it could run the usual trophy code. And that's where that's defined. So that works. That's a random little tidbit of information for you there. Yeah, so that is ATEN. What are we looking at time-wise? 44 minutes. Okay, yeah, we're going to call it there for this episode. All I've got left to cover is Konsu, the gate, and the King Ring when that's upgraded. So now that ATEN is online and the beam is shining at the big disc, power has flown down and this generator is active, and so the ring can be recharged so that opening this gate is possible. So yeah, thank you for tuning in yet again, and if you did sit through all that, then props to you, because that must have been pretty boring. Or you're very interested in these things, and yeah, maybe that was quite riveting for you to see how I set that up. I don't think it's anything special. A lot of the ways I set things up can be done much easier by someone who knows a bit more about the engine, but I make do where I can. I'm still learning myself. I've not made that many games. You know, I've worked on maybe 6 or 7 little game jams with a team, and in most of those cases I was doing things like UI and concept art. I learned a lot from seeing a friend of mine program the games, and then I made my own 2D platformer in 2020. But 2D works very differently from 3D. I had a lot of trouble with it, but some of the info carries over and applies also in a 3D game, and so I've been able to get by off my knowledge from making the 2D game, and a lot of this I've been able to program myself just through what I know. And I've also learned a lot through YouTube tutorials, which is how you learn these things, because nobody's there to teach you apart from randomers on YouTube. So that'll be it. I will see you in the next episode, which is shaping up to be the final Dev Diaries Blueprints episode, and maybe even the final Dev Diaries episode, because that'll be the end. I'll be closing the book on Bishop Chapter. I think I don't see myself really coming back to improve it or to do anything new. It is what it is. It's a product of its situation, and it's as full as it's going to be at the moment. But the idea was to make a start to finish working game that didn't have to look nice. It just had to run. Just run. So the mechanics are there. I've played the game through start to finish twice. It is completely 100% possible to go online, to download the build of the game that's currently there, to sit down and to play it start to finish. There's no saves. If you quit, you have to restart. But yeah, that's kind of the magic of it. It's a very, very ropey little indie game made by just me, nobody else, over the course of, I say 5 months, but I've only been working on it full time for about 2 months. The first 3 months I did a lot of concept art and planning, and I sort of very slowly modeled, but I wasn't working on it every day. I had other things going on. I do this course part-time for a reason. But the last couple of months I've been very stuck into it. I found my flow, I found my groove, and off I went, and I've worked on this project every day for the past 2 and a bit months. Whenever I'm not in work in my day job, I'm sat in front of my PC doing Bishop Chapter, and you can see evidence of that I guess right here and online. On Instagram, YouTube, I've posted pretty consistently. So it's going to be a weird change to have this game be finished, but I am completely frazzled. I need a break from this game. It's way too early to say if I'll ever come back to it, but I am personally ready to be rid of it. And not in any negative way. You get what I mean. It's just, I've had my fill of this game. And yeah, I'm very happy to be breaking down the blueprints and yeah, just seeing how much I've packed into this and explaining to you how everything works. And yeah, this is kind of it's a nice bit of closure for me to go back through the journey, to look back on everything I've built in these 2 months. And so yeah, it's a melancholy kind of, it's a mixed feelings, I think, thing I've got going on. But I'm going to chill out so much when this is done. You won't even believe. Why am I still speaking? We are over time. Right, I'll see you for the next and final episode of Dev Diaries very soon. Goodbye.